Hello, everyone. I'd like to call to order the Plan Commission meeting of October 17th at 6:35 p.m. First agenda item is approval of minutes.
Jump in there, make one amendment. Says Rich Tate's name was in attendance last meeting. Obviously, that was not the case.
I'll move approval of the draft minutes.
With that amendment?
With that amendment, I have one other thing as well. Just my name is spelled with two L's, Gabriella with two L's, so for future reference and updating it.
I'll second.
Second by Shelley. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
I'll abstain since I was not present.
That passes. Number 3 then, public appearances for non-agenda items. Is anyone here to speak on something that is not on the agenda? Okay. Next up, agenda review. Any changes we need?
No changes this evening.
Great, then we will go right into agenda item 5. First up is 5A, public hearing and consideration of ordinance 2023-0-19 and Plan Commission Resolution PCR-05-23, amending future land use map adjustment from along Lacey Road from industrial commercial, low density residential and parks and conservancy to industrial general, low density residential and parks and conservancy. We do have a few people wishing to speak on this matter. First up will be Clint, followed by Bill. If you could please come up and...
Great. Thank you very much. Yes, Clint Wenninger. Address is 2123 Springbrook North, Waukesha, Wisconsin. So I'm here tonight with Bill Buglas. We're both with Payne and Dolan, and we represent Payne and Dolan and HamFam Family Lands, Keith Hammersley, the property owners. And we're here tonight. I think the staff report is pretty well laid out and wraps up all the conversations that we've had for staff. But to keep it in a summary view, we have an offer to purchase with Hammersley for his property adjoining our what's remainder of our O'Brien property. And as we get closer to the end of the operations on the O'Brien property with the purchase of the Hammersley property, we're looking at how we can best develop that property going forward to be flexible, provide the most amount of developable land for, I know industrial was a huge need, but then also to provide some good transitions between the existing land uses. So we had numerous discussions with city staff, and we were able basically just to rearrange some of those land uses on the property, thus resulting in just a minor amendment to the comp plan. And we feel that this will provide the best flexibility and development going forward. And then we're here to answer any questions that you may have.
And I am Bill Buglas, also with Payne and Dolan. And my address is 4175 Pavlak Road in Deerfield. And our office is right down here on Lacey Road. And I'll just keep it right there unless there's a question.
All right, thank you. Next up then is Brett wishes to speak in opposition. Brett Parisia. And after that will be Kristen.
Just have a seat. Is that the procedure? Thank you.
And a friendly reminder, we do limit to 3 minutes, so if you do go beyond that, I will cut you off, so just keep that in mind.
Thank you.
Yes.
My name is Brett Pariseau. I'm a Fitchburg resident at 6259 Summit View Drive, which is the Corey Vista neighborhood. I first heard about this by talking to Zach Jones, who was kind enough to send me the 10-page PDF, which showed the details of the proposed amendments to the plan. I came to seek knowledge and to ask a couple questions. The main thing I think myself and my neighbors at the Corey Vista neighborhood are concerned about is the decreased green space with the proposal, the zoning from commercial to industrial general, and the decreased green space buffer from the original plan to the new plan, and also the decreased number of low residential housing with the new plan, the old plan versus the new plan. If you've ever been to the east side of a Corey Vista neighborhood by the edge of the gravel pit, you'll notice that the topography is quite interesting. There's a ridge going down Lacey Road, and there's a ridge over by the mountain bike park. And if you're along that fence looking into the 29 acres that's owned by, I believe, Ham Fam right now, it's a really interesting topography. It's not just flat fields. You have a ridge with an exceptionally quiet area between these ridges, which in the original plan was slated for low-density housing. I would suggest that certainly if you're a landowner, you have the right to develop your property the way you want. But I would also submit that this neighborhood would need more than 150 to a 200-foot buffer between it and the proposed 54-acre industrial general zoned industrial park. And I would invite any of you, if you would care, to meet me and take a look at that area and see the ridge and see how peaceful and quiet it is, which you don't get anywhere else. It blocks the noise from 151, it blocks the noise from Lacey Road, and to maybe shift some of that green space, if possible, between the neighborhood and the proposed park may be win-win for everybody. Thank you. But in order to help make good decisions, I would love to know the loss of green space acreage from the new plan compared to the old plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Kristen H.
Hi there, my name is Kristen Heweiler. I am a resident just across the street from Brett, 6258 Summit View Drive, and I'm here in opposition as well based on the plan that I've seen and compared to the original development plan. There's a substantial loss in conservancy from what I can see, a buffer between the development plan and what the residential plan is, and the switch to a more commercial industrial really changes the whole feel of the neighborhood. It can add a lot of noise. It can add more traffic. It's really, I think, a detriment overall. To Brett's point, I agree 100% with everything he said there, that I really feel we need that more buffer. I'm uncertain as to why we need another road going out onto Lacey in that new plan. And I would like to understand the rationale for the need for this development, the deviation for the original zoning planning to such I think a stark difference. It's not a minor change, frankly, at least to the neighborhood right there. It's substantial. And 150 feet or whatever it is, I would like to know the exact depth that we have of buffer zone. I don't think any of us signed up for a neighborhood where we're going to see large manufacturing buildings, outside our windows. That was not part of the original plan, and I'm not certain as to why that is necessary at this juncture. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Matthew Robbers.
Hello. My name's Matthew Robers, 6258 Summit View Drive. And I'm also in opposition. I echo and agree with everything that Brett and Kristen just said. I guess I would only add that, on top of that I guess that it really wasn't what we bought into. When we bought that property 5 years ago and built our house, that was a huge investment, and our assumption was that we were showed a plan, like Kristen and Brett said, and that's really not what is being proposed now. I'm also in favor of extending the green space, having more of a green space buffer. And it is beautiful property. It's definitely the park that's there is great, and it would be great to preserve some of that beauty and keep the neighborhood high value neighborhood that it is right now. So that's all.
Great, thank you. Next up is Tim Boot.
Hi, I'm Tim Buney, and I'm a resident on 2716 Turnstone Circle, so just down the road a little bit from the other folks here tonight. And I share the same concern. the loss of green space and then also the rezoning to industrial. I mean, when we moved into the house, we didn't actually build our house, but when we moved in, we looked carefully at all these plans, right? And honestly, if I saw this zoning, definitely wouldn't have bought the house. Definitely wouldn't have moved into that neighborhood. So it's really gonna, I mean, my big concern is that it's gonna significantly devalue homes in that neighborhood. And, you know, I think the loss of green space is obviously gonna have a huge impact on the value of homes from my perspective. And so, yeah, I also echo what previous folks have said in opposition to this, but I think in general, loss of that green space and rezoning is going to have a huge impact on our neighborhood. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else here who wishes to speak on item A? If not, I have two other comments that were submitted earlier today. One is from Marcia Gamboa of 6271 Stonegate Drive in Fitchburg in opposition of the matter. Her comments are, this community is full of families and small children. We don't support the use of it for industrialization, including the large trucks, noise, and pollution it will bring. The proposed development near the park is especially concerning and disappointing. Next was from Laura Chavez at 6269 Stonegate Drive in opposition. The potential loss of parks and conservancy along Lacey Road is disappointing. Considering the bike lanes that will be completed this year, it would be great to keep the P&C area for recreation and to potentially expand Quarry Ridge trails. Unless there's anyone else here to speak on this matter, then we will close the public hearing. Staff report.
Thank you very much. This is a minor comp plan amendment. The city does 2 of these processes, or up to 2 each year. So this is our fall minor comp plan amendment. The proposal here would also do an amendment to the North Stoner Prairie neighborhood plan. In essence, what we have here is existing low-density residential, parks and open space, industrial commercial, and then industrial general as our current future land uses. What the proposal anticipates to reshape those various areas, to shift the parks and open space footprint, increase the area of IG, reduce the area of residential, and then omit the industrial commercial future land use entirely. One of the things that we have been working with the applicants, or staff has been working with the applicants on, is the parks and open space area. In the existing, and I guess I should bring that up. If you will let me share my screen. In the existing future land use map, there's a strip of park and open space here, and then a strip of parks and open space down here along Lacey. As part of the work for the Lacey Road reconstruction, about half of the trees in this open space area have been removed for grading. So the applicants are asking to shift that parks and open space to the west and then reduce the amount of low density residential to just the 15 lots as you see here. One of the things that staff did was confirm, because that this area is actually noted on CARP-C's environmental corridor map. So the staff did reach out to CARP-C, that's the Capital Area Regional Planning Association, and they noted that this area was designated by the city as environmental corridor, and therefore the city drives the decision making on that. The other important change here is the reduction of the low-density residential. And so they're proposing just the 15 single-family lots. Staff has requested some additional, and I'll go back up to what's proposed. Staff has requested some additional parks and open space to stretch across and then better connect into the existing future land use map that has parks and open space on the south side. The applicants have agreed to work with us in extending some of the parks and open space along Lacey here to better connect into what's happening on the south side. What you see here before you is a general development plan prepared by the applicants as part of the proposal. Staff notes that this is just a general plan and things could shift as we move into the entitlement process with rezoning and platting. But this is for reference. Staff is asking the commission to take two actions this evening on item A. The first one is Plan Commission should act on the Plan Commission Resolution PCR 05-23, and then also provide a recommendation to Council on the Ordinance 2023-019, and staff can take any questions.
Hi, I have two questions, please. One is actually a clarification. If you could leave the map, the proposed map up. I just wanted to point out that the upper left part of the purple, which is part of the industrial zone area, is actually a stormwater management. Is that correct? It is. So that's not going to be a developed space. That's going to be an area where you're probably going to have a stormwater pond and some trees and landscaping, correct?
It is.
So even though it's purple, those almost nearly 5 acres is going to be an additional buffer that you're going to have. It just needs to be noted that it's stormwater retention because that's required as part of the development process. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear. And the uses right now, what would you say the difference between industrial commercial versus industrial general? What is going to be the biggest impact for the landowners and the people that live there?
Under industrial commercial future land use, there's a wider range of business types that would also fall under a zoning district like business highway or business general. Unlike industrial general, I will just say that this is not zoning, but under industrial commercial, there's a wider range, and it's usually thought of more of a light industrial kind of uses under industrial commercial. However, in industrial general, if this site was rezoned to industrial general, anything that was heavy industry would require a conditional use here. It's not that anything that's going to produce a lot of noise or emissions or heavy traffic is going to require a conditional use from this body. Does that answer your question?
Yep, so you don't see any stark difference, really. It's just a matter of which types of specific businesses could occur there. Yep. And I can't imagine anything that's a heavier use than a quarry, which is what this land currently is. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure that it's going to be a significant change. But I do agree that I think if we could stretch some of the green area down into that corner, maybe sacrifice the one that's at the top, since you're going to have stormwater management that's really going to be kind of a green space anyway. Maybe take the little pie at the top and swap that for the pie at the bottom. And are those, that takes me to my second question. I know my questions are long, I'm sorry.
No, it's
but
good.
My second question is can something that minor still be adjusted if it's not ironed out before we approve this amendment? Like what can still be adjusted within this proposal?
So I would be comfortable if Plan Commission is comfortable. I've talked with the applicants about extending this. I'm not so comfortable about exactly doing much more with this. And so I would request if there was significant changes other than working with the applicants to create that additional corridor here of parks and open space, I would suggest that Plan Commission table this item if you think there's more work that needs to be done.
But if we table this item, then it will be tabled until spring, correct?
No, we've done that, and it'll just push back another month of our cycle. That's
Okay.
how we did it this last time.
Thank you.
Where on the map is the ridge that the neighbors have been talking about? Do you know?
Well, there's certainly, this is a little bit older of an aerial photograph, so if you'll bear with me, I am in a wrong place here, but if you bear with me, I think maybe we can talk about it here. So I think this is some of the lower area that's quarried, and I think maybe they're kind of talking, this is kind of a higher range in here, is my understanding. But this is a 2022 aerial photograph. There certainly is a ridge over this way, which this proposal will not be impacting, but this is higher ground on this side.
So that's where the industrial general is proposed.
Yep. What's proposed here is the 15 single-family houses, and then it would come down this way for the open space, and then this area would be the industrial general. It's a little hard to match up the...
And you're saying that the current map with the green space on Lacey, you're saying basically it's shrunk by half already? Because of the tree removal and everything?
Yeah, we did. We took out the trees for Lacey in here.
And then I guess my other concern is I'm always in favor of maintaining as much flexibility as we can have. And I think when things, plans come before us, we look at the pros and the cons. And I'm concerned about taking away green space now when we don't have a plan in front of us, which I know how the process works, but we don't have a good idea of what would go there to know if that would be of more benefit than keeping the green space. And the industrial uses, which I had the same question Carol did, so you're kind of saying that's not a big difference between IC and IG.
Not in practice.
Although half of the trees along Lacey have been removed, there's still a stand kind of running in that section that would then be changed to industrial, correct?
You are correct.
With some significant trees, I believe, right?
There are trees. I don't have a study to know the numbers and the size and the quality at this point. I will tell you that anything comes forward with this project, it's going to need a preliminary plat. Preliminary plats now require a tree survey and a tree preservation study.
Okay.
Do you know when the quarry is ceasing operations? I mean, how far in the future? We're making a decision now for how far in the future.
I will let Clint and Bill maybe talk a little bit about the timeline here. Would you mind? Thank you.
Sure. We're looking, as far as those trees, though, if you go by there's the only trees left on there are on the very top of the hill, on the very narrow ridge. There's not really a lot. I know the traveling public hasn't probably traveled down that road much because it's been pretty torn up all summer. But if you get a chance to, you can see there's really not much left up in that area. And that was one of the reasons we even came forward with this request when we were talking to staff, because it just made sense for the overall, because the nature of it's changed. But as far as the development of the property, we have we see another year or two left probably on the O'Brien property to get that all mined out and then start reclaiming it. And then the Hammersley property will take a little bit more work to get that all graded out and ready to go for final development, but we're thinking within the next handful of years that we're going to have that to a point where it's going to be ready to go to be developed. But during that time, we'd want to make sure we have the approvals put in place, so then we're finishing up the reclamation that would meet those end uses. And, part of on the Hammersley property especially is like that mound of dirt, if you would, on that south side. A lot of that's material that's been stockpiled over the years that's going to be brought down and used for reclamation when the quarry is finally reclaimed till its end use. And I think through the process that the city has with the approvals, that when a plan is brought into place, that grading plan can then be utilized to help mitigate a lot of the concerns that have been mentioned to you. Because right now, it is a very active site and has been for quite a while with blasting and drilling and crushing and quite a few trucks coming in and out. So without any of some of those protections in there now. So I think with the next development phase, I know the Plan Commission is going to approve something that would mitigate any of those potential issues there too. So, and we did agree with staff, and Deanna brought that up before about extending that open space part on the south side. We did agree to staff that we would do that. So.
And I would add that Mike is continually responding to requests for uses that can be have land like this that's permitted for the industrial type use. And the longer we have to wait to have say the zoning done or whatever it is, the further behind Mike gets in terms of getting some of those businesses here that provide jobs and for people here in Fitchburg and other necessities. And I would also point out that just east of the existing subdivision, there is going to be a few more homes put in there. What was it, 15?
Yeah,
something like that. So anyone that's in the existing subdivision is also going to have that area of residential between them and the future use.
Right. Yeah, our goal is to, if this does get approved and move forward, is then to start working on those development plans for the property, so we can start those, get those through the process, start getting input from the city, so we can work on what that final development is going to look at, and then that's where a lot of those details can get added to address all those type of concerns. So.
And I might also add, as Deanna has stated, that in the platting process, in the rezoning, in the permitting of whatever uses there, y'all will have more opportunity to say, well, we want you to give I shouldn't say give, but establish some more green space on this lot or that lot or whatever it is. So nobody knows what's going to go in there yet, but there will be more opportunities for Plan Commission to fine-tune things. This is a very broad use request.
Thank you.
I was going to say, but once the Parks and Conservancy is rezoned, is changed, then it's changed. If we agree to remove some of the green space now by changing the comp plan, then it no longer is going to be a controlled park space.
I also wanted to note that there is a large wildlife preserve to the north of this, and we're looking at green space to the south. And so I would imagine the current plan has a little bit more of a wildlife corridor established between those two areas, which I think that area is kind of one of the best preserved areas for wildlife in the Fitchburg, within the city. And so I think I see a positive in kind of keeping a broader swath there to allow for that benefit as well.
To Carol's point, is there a reason why where we have the stormwater in that northwest portion, why would we label that as industrial general and not park and conservancy? Because usually when we have stormwater management in like that previous layout, that was going to also be serving that same purpose, I believe. But it looks a lot more drastic when you take a map from what it was. If you take that entire strip, basically straight up and it's all green, that is what the plan would be. We have cap off the last row of houses, a whole bunch of green space, and then start of industrial general, right? So what I'm getting at is that upper left flag kind of triangle there, should that be green instead of purple? We were saying that the use is going to be because it's going to be stormwater management, but why would we not zone it that way or future land use it that way?
Map if it's green.
I think we certainly could. It just will dictate the future zoning. So, but at this point, I don't really see a reason why it couldn't do that.
No, I would add that right now this is just at the minor comp plan amendment level. And so while it's labeled as a stormwater outlot, eventually their stormwater could go wherever they chose, and that could be developed under this current iteration with that, again, pending rezoning, plan commission and council approval.
So to be clear, when we're looking at this, we're not approving this plan. This is not a plan that's before us that we're approving. This is basically just the future land use, the intended future land use, so that the landowners have an idea of what they can pursue when it comes time. Because you're right, the stormwater is going to go where the water goes. And they won't know that until they have a stormwater study done. And this particular area, stormwater, is going to be critically important. So if that needs to move, that's not going to be a comp plan amendment. That's going to be done at the plat process, correct?
That's when most of the first stormwater calculations happen, is at the preliminary plat.
So this is really not a plan that we're looking at. It's just, do we want to be able to have more flexibility to lower the amount of low-density housing, and do we want to have the flexibility of having some different types of users that we can go and pursue from an economic development process to say we want to get some industrial general and some industrial, give up maybe the commercial uses, but try to get some more industrialized general, which isn't necessarily heavy manufacturing. It isn't necessarily hard uses. It's just basically industrial uses similar to Sub-Zero. I mean, their campus looks very nice and blends right in. And these are things that we can use. Landscaping, the developers can provide buffers, even in addition to what they're showing on this. It's going to depend who the end users are that come in. And that's going to be the time, I think, when we look at the conditional uses that Deanna talked about and any kind of buffering that needs to be done based on the nature of the businesses that come in.
But aren't we removing green space?
No.
Shifting green space, I think.
Yeah, I think we're primarily moving residential, right? I mean, we're really removing that residential buffer.
There's a big loss of residential area with the proposal.
The green space would be so this is if the stormwater stays in that triangle, right? If the stormwater stays in that triangle, then it will roughly mimic where it is now. It'll just shift west. But if it doesn't, then we may be breaking that up. You could have industrial back there if that's what the stormwater assessment shows basically.
But aren't we losing the green space on Lacey Road? I mean, I'm looking at...
Yes, so this is where approximately those existing trees are. About half of those, as we've discussed, are gone now due to the Lacey Road widening. And yes, this area would no longer be in parks and open space.
Right.
So that's not to say that when someone comes in and does their plat, that they don't leave that tree stand there. If there are, because they would have to do a tree preservation study to make sure that was taken care of. Because they're not going to develop every square inch of all of that land. I mean, there's going to be different there's going to be some open space, there's going to be parking, there's going to be a lot of stuff, so.
I think a lot of people here who had concerns about this, the question is why? I had the same question when I reviewed the packet. Why would we be taking away from low-density residential? Market conditions. We can't change that. To build a house today is quite a bit more expensive than 5 years ago, and this is unfortunately not the best terrain to be building houses in, given that it's basically a quarry. So ideally, I want this to stay as low-density residential as well. The market isn't going to probably allow for that, or it's going to sit as empty field and undeveloped for many, many years until who knows what. So I do think if it's sort of a bit of a dream scenario to say we're going to maintain all of this space for low-density residential, that will, unless the market drastically changes, may never come to fruition. So at least with an industrial use, you could, actually use the land. But I just wanted to address that because on a lot of people, it's why? Why would we do this?
I think one of the other things is that my understanding too about the city of Fitchburg is there aren't a lot of giant parcels that are good for industrial use. Like we just don't have a lot of, so if a big business wants to come here, something like Sub-Zero, there just aren't a lot of parcels that are zoned industrial that they can even choose from. So we lose like these great businesses potentially that might want to come and bring jobs into the city, but they just don't have a parcel available to us. So I think there is a lot of value in having a larger contiguous industrial parcel. I think the thing that I imagine that the neighbors are afraid of is like right now it's a quarry. So if you're changing the zoning, I think the imagination runs wild as to what that could be if it's like different than a quarry. So can we paint a picture of like what the potential businesses could be? Like are they gonna? Is there a potential for it to be some major operation with big trucks running back and forth that's even more disruptive than a quarry, or? I'm just curious, and maybe that's because we wouldn't approve something like that, so it doesn't matter because this planning commission probably wouldn't approve something like that anyway. But anyway, if you can give some insight into that,
I will try. So the answer to your question: any heavy industry with big impacts in terms of big trucks, lots of noise, vibration, emissions, would definitely need to have a conditional use. The first thing I would say is industrial general, that is generally goes into general industrial zoning, but also business highway zoning might be possible for industrial general. But any sort of heavy industry, as I said, would have to have a conditional use permit that would come before Plan Commission.
Mr. Chair, I might point out that the Fitchburg Commerce Park, which is off of McKee Road, was a quarry and a gravel pit in its entirety prior to what it is now. Where the Hy-Vee is, that whole area was a quarry in a previous life. And as to the low-density residential, across Lacey Road to the south, we have a CDP which has been approved for 124 lot residential development. And we're also going to be part of Fitchburg's urban service area expansion, continuing to the south towards Grandview, which will be, the soothsayers now say it'll be residential. And that will bring in about 400 to 600 lots.
So Bill was talking about there is a comprehensive development plan approved for residential, just south of Lacey in this property. And Bill was also talking about our neighborhood study for the South Stoner neighborhood plan, which is shown in orange here. And staff doesn't know for sure what all the different types of land use is, but I think it's fair to expect some residential.
Any other comments, or do we feel like we can make a motion? And staff would be comfortable with making the motion and saying we should include the strip along Lacey Road to include that, so that more or less pretend like it's on the map? Because that's what it would actually be.
I'm comfortable with it, but it's up to you all.
Sure.
Can I ask one more question? So assuming that this passes after this vote, can you commit to like bringing the neighbors in if an industry comes with a proposal for that lot? Like, will there be a neighborhood outreach to let them know what might be coming? So, at whatever point you do decide to develop
Yeah,
that
when
lot.
we get to the point of developing those finished plans that are going to encompass the development of the whole site with the green space and everything else, that would be the opportune time to bring people in.
And
It would be at that
the
time.
entire neighborhood will be notified when things like that come
Yep.
up so that they can
Yep.
weigh in.
Yes. We do that when we site most of our plants or gravel pits or quarries and the CDP on the south side of Lacey, we had took input from the neighbors as well on that one.
Did you have something else to add that you wanted to?
Question for you, please.
Sure. Can you come up in one of the two mics?
That's fine. I just have a simple question when I first came here. Question is, how many acres of Parks and Conservancy will be lost to industrial with this proposal? What is the actual number of acres? I can look at the map on figure 7 and kind of calculate it going to the DCI map and doing some measurements, but how many acres are we actually talking about converting from Parks and Conservancy to industrial general?
Staff did not calculate that number.
Because if we've cut down a lot of trees on Lacey, I would think our goal would be to do what we can to preserve what is left or plan to shift what will be lost to a buffer between the neighborhood and a 54-acre industrial general park. Thank you.
Deanna, I have one more question. The new tree preservation plan, that kicks in if this lot, if someone approaches, interested in this lot?
Whenever there's a preliminary plat.
Okay. And that would include this case?
They're going to have to do a preliminary plat.
Great.
Mr. Chair, can Payne and Dolan answer that gentleman's question?
Do you happen to have that?
Do you have the
Either of you?
information?
No.
No.
Okay. Unless there's more comments, I'm waiting for a motion.
I have a question about the motion. So if we are moving to approve, this goes to council, or if we're moving to deny or whatever, this goes to council next, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And us suggesting things at this point to have them changed, we would only do that if it was something above and beyond what would be done at the preliminary plat level, correct? So there can be tons of modifications within the specter of what we're looking at right here. Things can move around slightly, things can change, because this is a plan. It's not carved in granite. It's not an approved move ahead, go plan, correct? So we can say, we would prefer to have trees here or trees there or move this here or move that there, but really it's the areas that are shown the way they're broken out on the map is the general plan, correct? But that can have some flexibility when the development process starts, is that correct? So that we don't need to put all of the little tweaks that we would think we would want on it right now. That can be done later.
So what we're doing this evening is reviewing looking at the future land use map. It's not, these lines on the future land use map are not surveyed lines, if that makes sense. So that means, there's some flexibility. It's a little bit misleading, kind of having it here with the development plan. We can address protecting trees, adding open space, making sure there's a wider corridor. There's a lot more work that can be done once we get into the preliminary plat and the rezone and the development plans. The future land use map isn't the final decision about where trees are going to go or exactly what trees are going to be saved. Did I address your question?
Yes, because I think we're overthinking what we're approving.
But
a little bit.
I would like to comment on the fact that they want certainty on how they move forward with remediation as they decommission the quarry. So while I can understand that there's some flexibility present in the platting process, they're going to remediate based on what we decide here. And so that process is going to look different based on the rough lines of where things are expected to fall. If you think you're going to put a large industrial on something, you're going to remediate very differently than if it's going to be a green space. And so there is, I do believe that there's some work that may come of this that wouldn't be captured in the plat process, but that would kind of, I don't want to say irreversible, but it would put us down a road on how these things are going to be laid out.
I will also point out that the last time Plan Commission had a minor comp plan amendment, we voted unanimously in support of it, and council voted 5-2 against it. So we are spending a lot of time on something that council may not even take our advice to heed. So I, again, would like to call for a motion. We have a very long agenda.
I'll move approval of ordinance 2023-019.
I'll second.
All right, so sorry, you took it out of order, but I'll take the ordinance first. So all those in favor of providing a recommendation to Common Council on the ordinance 2023-0-19, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
You want to do a roll call?
Let's do roll call.
Shelley.
Nay.
Stephen.
Aye.
Josh.
Nay.
Gabriella.
Aye.
Carol.
Aye.
And Zach.
Aye.
So that passes.
And then I'll move approval of Plan Commission. I'm sorry, I'm going to go on the agenda. I'll move approval of Plan Commission Resolution PCR 0523.
Can we also do a roll call on this?
I'll second.
Oh, sorry. Second. By Carol.
Yes. Shelley.
Nay.
Stephen.
Aye.
Josh.
Nay.
Gabriella.
Aye.
Carol.
Aye.
And Zach.
Aye.
That also passes. Moving on then to 5B, public hearing and consideration of ordinance 2023-0-20 and Plan Commission Resolution PCR-06-23, adopting and recommending the fall amendment to the comp plan for a future land use map associated with McGaw Park neighborhood and the McGaw Park neighborhood plan on property associated with 5335 Nobel Drive from government institutional to medium density residential and high density residential. And I will open the public hearing. We have David Fahey here. Do you actually want to speak or just here for questions?
Well, I can talk or
All right,
answer
great.
questions. I'll keep it brief. I can go in the history. I'm David Fahey. I'm a lifelong resident of Fitchburg. I live on the family farm and still operate the farm in Archlight. This was proposed as a school lot. We currently have a Montessori school that is interested in part of the lot. That is the reason for the zoning. And I will let staff do their part, and then I will answer questions unless you want me to talk about something else.
We don't need any more life history. That's all good. Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak for 5B? Then I will close the public hearing and ask for staff.
I need to make a correction in terms of the lot number. The lot number is actually lot 144 in Highfield Reserve. As the applicant, as David Fahey noted, the request is to change the comp plan and McGaw neighborhood plan, specifically going from government institutional to medium density residential and high density residential. What is proposed in the eastern portion of the site is a Montessori school and then multifamily on the western portion of the site. The high-density residential designation calls for 9 dwelling units, a minimum of 9 dwelling units per acre. We are proposing medium-density residential for the site of the Montessori school, and technically that would allow for 5 to 9 units per acre. There is an important note here in terms of the McGaw Park neighborhood plan. The McGaw neighborhood plan was completed and adopted prior to our current comprehensive plan, and the future land use categories are slightly different than what we currently have in the comp plan. Therefore, this proposal would change the McGaw neighborhood plan to R2 and then institutional. That's just how the land use categories fit better. So I just wanted to make a note about that. Once again, the applicants did provide a site plan. It is not binding to the applicants. We're not technically looking at a plat or a CSM or a rezone or a site plan. So that process would be determined at a later time. Staff does recommend approval of PCR 0623 and then Ordinance 2023-020.
I'll open up for comments and questions.
Do we know if there was a neighborhood meeting held on this? Thank you.
Positive comments.
Thank you.
So will we be looking, do you have plans already for this future building?
The school or the?
The residences, the multifamily.
Yeah, do you have it?
I do, just hold on.
We have a preliminary plan, we're still subject to change.
Yeah.
We didn't do beyond, we haven't gone into the details.
Yeah, because we need to do this is
We have
step
to
one.
do that next in the GDP.
Great.
3-story facing Nobel and Fahey Glen. Which is similar to what's across the streets.
And you're confident with the size of the lot for the school that's?
Yes, that is their request. They have a preliminary, it would be a 1-story, 1,100 to 1,150 to 1,200 square feet, between 150 students and 25 staff. In the storm ponds in the corner along Nobel. They are a multinational, United States firm that has multiple locations in Dane County currently.
Yeah, it's not going to go.
Any other comments or questions?
Do we need 2 separate motions? Or
Yes.
can we do one together?
This is 2 separate.
All right. I'll move approval of ordinance 2023-0-20.
Second.
Seconded by Gabriella. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes as a recommendation.
Also move approval of Plan Commission Resolution PCR 06-23.
Second.
Second by Gabriella. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That also carries.
Thank
you. Up next, 5C, public hearing and consideration of conditional use CU-2425-23, requested by Eric Udelhoffen, agent for Adam Guile and One Energy Renewables, to grant a conditional use for a solar utility use to allow a solar farm on the property associated with 5101 Burn Road. We have a number of people here to wish to speak, so I will open the public hearing first with Mark Jones. It says to speak, but I answer questions only if needed. Additional comments of state law does not allow the city to deny the solar site.
Stephen,
Yes.
just a heads up, I'm going to be recusing myself from this one.
Thank you.
Mark Jones, 2266 South Sain Road, City of Fitchburg. I'm also chair of the Egg and Roll. This came before Egg and Roll this evening, and it did pass. There was a lot of discussion that went on, a lot of questions. And state law does not allow municipalities to deny a solar. No matter what we do, we can change things, we can ask for amenities, but state law, part of that was changed with the energy bill, does not allow us. And Deanna can more address that when she comes back. And I would hope that she would, because our hands are tied, and so are yours. And a lot of the residents, I'm not sure, understand how tied we are on that. The one thing I do ask that you guys look, the one thing I'm very concerned about is the driveway runoff coming towards Burn Road. And they can do some driveway things that are not in the plan now to prevent the water runoff or control the water, slow the water down. And I ask that you consider that when you're looking at this proposal. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Next up is Bo Stafford, wishes to speak in support of the matter.
One moment, please. Hi, thank you, Vice Chair Heller and members of the Commission. I'm testifying in favor of One Energy's Strix project and here to provide information and answer questions about agrivoltaics. I have an unabridged testimony I've provided members of the Commission, but I will keep my comments brief and be willing to answer any questions you have after I'm done. My wife and I own a 56-acre certified organic farm on Hay Farm Road. At Discovery Farm, we produce small square hay and recently started a Katahdin sheep operation. We intend to graze our sheep at the Tidal Solar Facility, and we are excited to prove the concept of solar grazing here in Fitchburg. I grew up planting tobacco, baling hay, milking cows, and raising sheep and pigs for the Rock County Fair. Nowadays, I work full-time in the State Senate, where I specialize in agriculture, broadband, education, and environmental policy. My wife and I bought our farm in fall of 2019 to help our 2- and 4-year-old children eventually understand the value of hard work, build a love for the land, and learn valuable life lessons only working on a farm could teach. My passion for farming was a blank slate, and when we started as a first-generation farmer would know, it has evolved. I enjoy a challenge and my skill set to do intensive research and get my hands dirty to make agrivoltaics the perfect avenue for profitably farming, contributing to the betterment of a community, and providing a blueprint for an emerging renewable energy industry partnered with agriculture. This is where agrivoltaics presents an innovative solution. Agrivoltaics, or dual-use solar facilities, combine solar panels and agriculture, truly allowing for the best of both worlds. Agricultural preservation and solar energy advancement can go hand in hand if communities like Fitchburg and others around the state evaluate solar projects for agrivoltaic potential. If you want more information about solar grazing as a form of agrivoltaics, I strongly encourage you to check out the information provided by the American Solar Grazing Association. I'm happy to answer any questions that the Commission has, and I look forward to providing your resource.
All right, thank you. Next up to speak is Jerry Gunlock in opposition of the matter.
My name is Jerry Gunlock. I live at 5086 Burn Road, Fitchburg. I've lived 77 years right across from this area that's going to be developed. I've lived there, my house, for 48 years, directly across where this driveway is going to come out to my property. We have 9 houses starting on the east side, looking at this field up the hill. This field lays from the railroad tracks to the west. It's a hill, it goes up, and then to the north, it drains out towards Burn Road. And I live on the north side of Burn Road. We have 5 houses to the east. We have 3 houses that face the north, facing south to this area. We have 1 house right to the west. So there's a total of 9 houses that are right around this thing, and the closest one is probably going to be about 200 or 300 feet away from it on the west, right up to their property line. The north is just on the north side of the road. They tell me about 400 feet, so that's a little over a football field that we're going to be looking at it. The 5 houses to the east are a little bit farther away, but they can look at the whole eastern side of the area, down to the railroad tracks. Property values, I've been told by realtors and some people, other people that I've talked to, that our property prices will drop anywhere from 5 to 30%. Okay? I have a neighbor right next to me has $1 million house. I have a house that's worth quite a bit. I have 5 acres total. Very primo. I have a creek running in my backyard, Murphy Creek, that runs through there. So that's kind of the lay of the land. What I'm concerned about more is the environmental impact that this is going to have to that area. Number 1, I just explained to you how the land lays. It lays to the east towards Murphy Creek, okay? To the north, or to the west and to the north, it slopes to Burn Road. The water runoff, like I said, I've lived there 48 years right there, and I've seen water come out of that property 3 inches over Burn Road and into my ditch, washing gravel where the town had to come and remove the gravel.
I'm sorry, your time is up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Everybody gets 3 minutes.
I gave you 20 seconds over, I'm sorry. I have one other person who just signed this saying that they are to speak or register in opposition. I cannot read the name. It looks like it starts with a J. Jerry Lynch, all right.
Gerard Lynch, 5029 Burn Road, 59 years out there, and my concern is the water runoff. If the DNR has been involved in this at all, if you go to all the other solar plants that are around, they're on flat ground. It's got a real good slope to it, and that concerns me. I live out in the country to enjoy the country, and I really don't want to look out my back window or off my porch at 35 acres of solar field. And now I'm going to lose out on my house, Adam's going to gain on his property. He's going to get roughly $35,000 a year now. But I'm going to lose out on my house that I've been living in for 15 years. I don't get anything for it. Does Fitchburg get anything for it? Besides, they got another solar field in their backyard. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here for 5C for the conditional use to speak? Yes. Please just make sure to fill out a form then afterwards. Thank you.
Jamison Lynch, 5035 Burn Road. I expressed the same concerns that Jerry Gunlock and the other neighbors expressed that way. My concern, or why I'm here, is there is another parcel that Adam owns directly across the street from us, of 30 acres. I'm here tonight just being opposed to this due to the fact if 2 years down the road this gets approved, then he's going to turn that 30 acres into solar, and everything on Burn Road that's now tillable acreage gets dissolved into solar fields. So hopefully there'll be an environmental impact report done on this, and we can see, with Murphy Creek and the water runoff. I want to thank you guys for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak on item 5C? Otherwise, I will close public hearing and ask for staff report. Or we can have the applicant go first, and then we'll have staff fill in any holes.
Thank you. My name is Peter Murphy. I work for One Energy Renewables. I'm joined by my colleague Seamus Fitzgerald, who's in the audience, as well as the landowner, Adam Guile, and his wife. We are an independent developer of renewable energy projects, specifically solar projects. Seamus and I and around 18 other people work in our Madison office. It's a Seattle-based company, but at this point, Madison is kind of like, we joke that it's HQ2. I think there's about 72 of us who work around the country. This is just a map of the projects that we've constructed in the Midwest. So you can see there's a pretty high concentration in Wisconsin. We're constructing 16 projects this year. Most notably, for the purposes of this meeting, is the Tito Solar project here in Fitchburg. That project was permitted before this body about a year ago. A question that we frequently get is, why are solar projects getting built in Wisconsin? It's not what folks think of when they think of a really sunny state. This chart begins to answer that question. So along the left side here is the cost of electricity from a utility scale solar project in megawatt hours. And then along the bottom is time. And you can see back in 2009, the cost per kilowatt hour from a utility scale solar project was like 36 cents a kilowatt hour. Not competitive with what we pay for retail. Fast forward about a dozen years and it's come down in price by an order of magnitude, right? So we're at 3.5 cents, 3.6 cents per kilowatt hour, which is parity roughly with what utilities pay for wholesale electric generation. Just to hammer this point home, this is the levelized cost of energy comparison of different sources of electricity. Along this area in the top here is renewables. Circled in gold here is utility scale solar, what we're talking about today. This green line is that 3.6 cents per kilowatt hour. And you can see it's among the cheapest kilowatt hour on the grid. So all of this is to say there's a solid business case for solar projects. It's now cheaper to point a piece of glass at the sun than it is to burn something to get electricity for the first time in human history. Wisconsin farmers are already inextricably linked to our energy mix and energy production in general. 37% or so of our corn crop goes to ethanol production as an additive in gasoline. So when a farmer or landowner decides to change their crop from corn to sunlight, it's a much more efficient use of the land, over 100 times more efficient use of land for solar than it is for corn. And we would need just a little bit over 1% of Wisconsin's total farmland to generate 100% of Wisconsin's electricity with projects that are as efficient as the Strix project is planned to be. So, folks, I appreciate everyone's public comment. I think all of those concerns are certainly valid and stuff we think about all the time. When we're selecting a site for a solar project, there are three basic tenets. The first is existing electrical infrastructure. So we need to find a site that's on three-phase distribution line. This project is not a gigantic transmission line. It doesn't have a new transmission going in. It's interconnecting to existing three-phase distribution lines that already run along Burn Road. Those distribution lines run to the Sain substation, and basically what happens is a developer selects a site and then sends it to the utility. The utility studies what the costs would be to essentially accommodate a solar project on the distribution lines there. Sometimes it's exorbitantly expensive and the project dies right there. Sometimes it's not. But often that's where a potential solar project would die. The second tenet here is site suitability, so the actual parcel itself. We're generally looking for a rectangular site, relatively flat, with depth of bedrock greater than 10 feet. I'll talk about why in a second. We want to avoid wetlands. We want to avoid floodplains. Typical development criteria. And then third, an interested landowner. So this project has a 30-year lease with a 10-year option to extend. So as you can imagine, a lot of people don't want to tie up their land for that long. So it's tricky to get in that sweet spot in the middle of the Venn diagram, right? There's a lot of opportunities for a project to die. And we are lucky enough to have all of these kind of coming together on this project. So let's talk about the components of the project themselves. So we are using bifacial solar panels. A typical solar panel looks like this. On the front, you've got glass. Beneath the glass is a silicon wafer. The silicon is the second most abundant element on the planet after oxygen. The silicon wafers, it's basically refined sand. The silicon wafers are connected to each other with a little ribbon of silver. And then around the outside is an aluminum frame. The back sheet on these, this is like what you would see on like a residential solar installation. It's got this polymer back sheet. Ours are what's called bifacial panels. So the top looks the same as the bottom. So you can absorb sunlight from the top, and then you can absorb sunlight from the bottom on, say you've got a snowy day, right? So this is called the albedo effect, the reflection of the sun. If you get a sunburn on your chin when you're working outside in the winter, that's that albedo effect that we take advantage of with the bifacial panels. We also use single-axis trackers. So throughout the day, the panels are facing, they begin the day facing east, about 50 degrees, and then at 15-minute increments, they just adjust throughout the day following the sun. So between the bifacial panels and the single-axis trackers, the efficiency and productivity of solar projects like this have increased 20+% since around 2018 when this technology kind of got to the market. The modules are mounted on steel I-beams. You can see they stick out of the ground about 5 feet, the I-beams do, and they're embedded at about 8 to 10 feet deep. That's why we want to look at the depth of bedrock. On top of the I-beams is a torque tube, and the torque tube runs north and south. And then on top of that is the racking, and that's where the modules are connected to the torque tube. So they tilt from east to west, and they're on these rows running north and south. You can see in this picture, it's kind of a good comparison. The height of these panels at this time of day is about 6.5 feet. This fence here is about 8 feet tall. These guys are probably around 6 feet. At their highest extent, the solar panels are around 8 feet. A little bit more about the fence. So this is a woven wire deer exclosure fence. It's similar to what you would see around an orchard. The width of the openings of the fence are 3 inches by 6 inches at the bottom, and then they widen as they go up. Though at their widest, they're 7 inches by 6 inches. And there are these wood posts, again, 8 feet tall. The wood posts are spaced about 20 feet apart. We do this on purpose to match the agricultural character of communities. This isn't like a chain link fence with barbed wire on top of it like you'd expect to see at a power plant. It's what you'd see around an orchard. A couple other components are the inverters. So what the inverters do is they convert direct current to alternating current, which is what we use on the grid. So the panels produce DC, and the inverters convert it to AC. This guy's about 6'3". You can see it's mounted on top of a steel I-beam, again, embedded. And then there's the transformers. These are similar to what you would see around a school or a department store, or probably this building. There will be 2 transformer pads. Those are 10 feet by 10 feet concrete pads, and that's the only part of the project that's paved. Everything else will be sheep grazing or pollinator habitat. And Bo, who spoke earlier, we're in talks with him to graze the project. He lives about 2 miles away, and he grazes sheep. This is another picture of what it looks like when there's sheep grazing a site. We use a seed mix that's called a fuzz and buzz mix. So it's good for pollinators. It's also good for sheep grazing. In cases where we don't have grazing, we have native pollinator habitat throughout, and so the seed mix is much more, prairie flowers. The grazing mix is also beneficial for pollinators as well. The deep-rooted perennial pollinators and grazing mix actually minimizes erosion, stormwater issues, and when compared to row cropping, because they've got deep roots, a lot more biodiversity. So you'd expect to see less runoff after the project is complete than before. A little bit more about this project in particular. It's 6 megawatts. It's the same size as our Tido project, 30 acres of fenced. It's expected to produce 11.9 million kilowatt hours per year, which is enough electricity for roughly 1,400 average Wisconsin households. And again, it's going to connect to 3-phase distribution lines that already exist along Burn Road, matching the voltage along Burn Road, which is 13.8 kilovolts. So no significant changes to the electrical distribution system. Got an anecdote to kind of wrap us up here. The electricity that comes off of a project like this on the distribution grid, so distributed generation is, again, along these distribution lines, the 3-phase lines that you see running up and down the road. The electricity that comes off a project like this goes to the neighbors, goes to the nearest load. So there's this anecdote where Hurricane Ian had a direct hit in Florida about a year ago. It happens to be there happens to be a housing development that was developed by a former Packer named Sid Kitson, and the houses have solar, and there's a larger community scale solar project like this in the community as well, and no one lost power during that huge storm. There were like 2 million people who lost power, but nobody in this community. So it speaks to reliability and resilience. The grid is more reliable when we have distributed generation resources on the grid, rather than singular, centrally located, gigantic power plants. We're happy to give tours. As you can see, we're happy to do that. It's convenient now that we have the Tido project very nearly complete. It'll be complete in the next couple of weeks. And solar installer is one of the fastest growing jobs and has been for several years in the United States. So we view this as a job creator. This is something that can't get outsourced. It's boots on the ground constructing these projects. I've just got contact information. Happy to answer folks' questions.
All right. Thank you very much. Next, we'll get a report from staff.
Okay, so as was mentioned, this is a 6-megawatt solar project on approximately 30 acres of a approximately 70-acre parcel owned by Adam Geil and Kristen Hansen. The Giles land is part of Base Farm 61, and most of the area is currently farmed. The solar panels are expected to be set back several hundred feet from Burn Road, with a 20-foot setback along the eastern property line. The applicants held a neighborhood meeting on October 3rd. The neighbors requested additional information about the impacts of solar projects. The neighbors also requested landscape screening along Burn Road. The applicants discussed landscape screening with the neighbors directly to the west, and the applicants will install landscape screening along Burn Road, and then also to buffer the neighbors to the west if that is determined that the property owners would wish to have that. I think that kind of sums up everything. There's much more in the memo, but I think you've hit the high points here. Staff does recommend approval of the conditional use permit. There is a small edit on it. It's actually CU 2525-23. So we had a small error there, but same conditional use. Staff recommends approval with 16 conditions. I will just point out that this project will return back to Plan Commission because an architectural design review is needed.
Okay. Thank you. Open for comments or questions.
I have a few quick questions, if that's okay, of the applicant. Who actually maintains those grazing fields to make sure that the deep-rooted plants that you seem to explain are working as a rain garden, basically, to make sure that those aren't overrun and choked out and that it actually serves that purpose and addresses the runoff issues that the neighbors are worried about?
Yep, that's a great question. So we have on staff a vegetation manager. She essentially coordinates the vegetation management plan for all of our projects and any contractors. So lately we've worked with NRS, a company that specializes in vegetation management. This project, due to Wisconsin policy, this project, either all of the power from the project will go to MG&E, will be purchased by MG&E, or the project itself will be purchased by MG&E. They're aware of the project. Again, they've studied it. It's very likely that the project would be sold to MG&E upon energization. So after construction, after all final testing and all permits are approved and everything. At that point, management they enter into what's called an operations and management agreement, likely with us, but it would probably be put out to RFP if they choose to. But it stands to reason that we would be uniquely equipped to do operations and maintenance on this project. But it would ultimately be up to them. The vegetation maintenance plan is part of our conditional use permit, so we would be held to manifest it as we've described.
And as far as the view, I understand that the fence does look more like what you would see in a rural setting, but a solar field looks nothing like an orchard. So how would you propose to provide some visual screening so that people don't lose the agricultural feel that they've grown accustomed to living in their houses for 50 years? I understand that concern quite a bit, and I wouldn't want to all of a sudden be looking out my window and looking at these panels. And I guess a secondary question to that is how much glare comes off of those panels into the homes that are around this. Because this is going to be a stark landscape change for the people that live in a rural community, in a rural area, that probably expected it would remain rural and farmed.
Sure. No, those are great points and great questions. So I submitted a glare report. There will be no glare. Solar panels are designed to absorb sunlight, not reflect it. Any reflected sunlight is lost power production. So there will be, and the glare report reinforces, there will be no glare. It was studied along Burn Road and at all the neighboring residences. There is we had our neighborhood meeting, and the city responded with basically a conditional use letter requesting that we build into the plan some vegetative screening. So that is in our plan. We will be screening with hardy spruce trees and service berries along Burn Road. Right now, there's some vegetation. You can see it on the site plan. To the north, directly across from Gunlock, is a row of trees, I guess, somewhere between a grove and a row. Having driven past it today, I think he's pretty well screened. The folks to his west are not, although they do have a row of evergreens. So we'll be supplementing that with additional vegetation. Like I said, hardy spruce, service berries. And then to the east, there's that opening near to the railroad that our vegetation screen is also proposed.
Do you provide mature trees, or are we talking about trees that are going to go in and have to grow into the 30-year lease?
So we've had bad luck with trees that are too tall when you plant them. They tend to die. We generally plant trees that are about 4 feet in height, and they seem to take pretty well and get established. So, there would be a period of time of growth, but, it's our desire to be a good neighbor, and so we agree to do the vegetative screen, and I think it'll be pretty well screened.
And then I have one question for staff, and I promise I'll be quiet. How much ag land can we take out of production in the city of Fitchburg before we're in violation of our Ag Preservation Act? And is this truly something that we do not have the right to deny based on state law? And if that's the case, is everything that's open space in Fitchburg eventually destined to become solar fields?
Well, that's a big question.
Yes, it is.
Of course, we do have a farmland preservation plan that was recently adopted, and our goal there is to preserve as much farmland as possible. I'm not aware of a certain number that we cannot take out. And the solar farms function in this kind of odd space because it is allowable under our agricultural zoning and is considered a conditional use under our agricultural zoning. We're actually not rezoning anything here. And technically it remains available as farmland, at least in the future it could be farmed. So to your next question, we have very little control over we have very little control to, as a city, to say no to a solar farm like this. State law limits how many conditions. We certainly can't put conditions on a proposed solar project that would kill the solar project. We cannot do that. Conditional uses are difficult now in the state. Conditions on a conditional use permit need to be reasonable and able to be addressed. So what I mean by that, we can't put a condition that it cannot be addressed by the applicant in a reasonable manner.
I understand.
Yeah. Did I miss one, Carol?
I don't know.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yep, Gabrielle?
Are there runoff concerns? Like even, obviously you have the vegetation that sets in, but with these types of projects, do you see runoff? And then is there a difference between a flat space versus the sloped nature of this property?
It's our civil engineer's goal to minimize changes to the drainage pattern on any of our projects. We specialize in low impact solar installations, so that means in contrast to the very large, many thousands of acres solar projects that you see around the state, we try to grade minimally. It requires more steel. It's more costly to do it this way, but ultimately it's better for the land. We consider ourselves agrivoltaic developers, which is why we put a concerted effort into grazing rather than mowing, and pollinator habitat rather than, Kentucky bluegrass. And also like why we want to be good neighbors, right? So it's our goal to change the drainage pattern of the property as minimally as possible. So it should match when the project is done what it does today, except for there will be presumably improved water infiltration as a result of our grazing mix being planted throughout 30 acres of the project. We are subject to a DNR stormwater permit. So we will be applying for and receiving that. I don't believe there to be runoff issues. The water that runs off of solar panels is safe to drink. There's millions of homes. It's like 1 in 25 households has solar panels on the roof, and folks drain into their rain barrels and put it in their gardens, and then they eat their food, and so no safety concerns there. But I think you're really talking more about like erosion. I would expect the erosion and stormwater to improve, conditions to improve after the project is constructed when compared to current row cropping.
And in your other projects in Wisconsin, like what's your success rate? Because I assume that with the vegetation seeding, it takes years.
It takes about 5 years to fully propagate. But
and you work on it for 5 years to make sure that it's seeding properly and it's actually
built right
it.
into our vegetation management plan. This is year 2 or 3 of a project in Minnesota. So it's not all planted to black-eyed Susans, but there happened to be a super bloom, and it's like this is what it ideally looks like. When we're saying we're going to plant pollinator habitat, it's not some pollinator habitat. It's like thick,
Any other comments or questions?
Very quickly. What's your name, miss? Your card's not up. Carol? To your question, I believe Mr. Lynch, just one thing to talk about, was discussed if this project went in, then on that 3-phase line, there would be a second project right down the road. At least for myself, I'm not an engineer, but as it's been described to me by engineers, that's not exactly how the grid works for distributed generation. On that line, there'd be a very low likelihood, be close to technologically impossible to put a second project. And just to draw attention to Peter's presentation about the size of it, if Fitchburg followed the rest of the state, you would need about 1%, 1.2% of the farmland to power, the majority of it. Now, this is obviously a little bit more dense in housing than more rural parts in Wisconsin, but we do not see this as being something where you would see 25, 50% of the land in solar panels. That's not the way that technology would work with the grid that we have right now. So would not consider that to be a problem for this or the chance of a further project down the road because of this one. So just wanted to share that.
Thanks, James.
Any other comments or questions? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion.
Approval of conditional use permit request CU-2525-23 with the 16 conditions suggested by staff.
I'll second.
Second. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? and 1 abstention by Zach. That passes. Up next is 5D and E, Certified Survey Map Request CS-2518-23, and the public hearing consideration of the rezone request RZ-2526-23, requested by John McCauley, agent for Rye Properties LLC, to approve a certified survey map and rezone request for an access easement for the purposes of serving 2 existing parcels on properties associated with 1916 and 1922 County Highway MM. This was postponed from last month. Do we have the applicants here?
I don't think so.
Okay, then we'll just have staff report.
Let's do the public hearing just in case.
Do we? Oh, sure. Sorry. I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak on this matter? I'll close the public hearing, and we'll have staff report. Thank you.
All right. So, as was mentioned, this did come, the certified survey was postponed from the September meeting. The reason that it was postponed is staff realized a little bit too late to take it off agenda that we needed to also do the rezone. What the applicant is proposing is to add an access easement through this by way of the CSM to service the 2 existing lots. There's 2 lots. One is zoned BH, Business Highway. One is zoned RD, Rural Development. And the Business Highway one is Marquardt RV sales there. And then the RD one is mostly residential right now. And in order to provide access to both of those properties, the easement is proposed. And in order to address the access easements, they are proposing to shift the property lines between the 2 existing parcels slightly. That requires a small rezone. So staff recommends approval of the certified survey map and then also approval of the rezone. I'm happy to answer any questions.
There aren't any. Again, I will entertain a motion.
I'll move approval of certified survey map request CS 2518-23 with the 6 conditions outlined by staff.
Second.
Second by Carol. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries.
I'll move approval of rezone request RZ 2526-23 with the 3 conditions outlined by staff.
Second.
Second by Carol. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? That also carries. Next up, we have 5F and 5G, Certified Survey Map Request CS-2523-23, and the public hearing consideration of the rezone RZ-2524-23, requested by Christopher Batke, agent for Ryan Lutke and Schaefer Partnership, to rezone property and create a new certified survey map to create 2 new parcels and rezone from rural development to low-density residential, to amend the property boundaries between the farm and existing residents located on 4889 Irish Lane. We'll open the public hearing, and I have 2 people. First one is Keith Kleisch, wish to register only in opposition. Comments are, I've lived here for 40 years, don't want to lose, they both say F. That's where we're on, right? Okay. Don't want to lose the nature and animals that live, worried about traffic increase, crime, and light pollution. And the other one is from Tracy Jones on 4876 Irish Lane, registered in opposition. Adding more residential condos, apartments will add congestion to our neighborhood. The natural resources are being depleted all around us. We do not want to lose our country feeling. Is there anyone else here that is here to speak on this matter?
Ryan is online.
Okay.
I don't know if he wants to speak. Ryan Lutke is online.
Ryan, would you like to speak? You're muted.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, thanks.
So obviously I'm in favor of this. This came about through a survey that the Schaefer Partnership had done a year or so back, what they discovered is that the property we had purchased had existing encroachments that we were unaware of. We've been working on this for over a year with the Schaefer Partnership to come to terms as to how we can resolve the encroachment as a part of our side of this, not so much the low density rezone that they're trying to do with their parcel, but we are purchasing approximately 6,500 square feet, which includes the encroachment plus a little bit more to capture some of the tree line that's alongside our property. So what all I got.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so, sorry.
Anyone else? Otherwise, I will close the public hearing and staff report.
Okay. Sorry, I jumped ahead. So just to be clear, no new parcels are being created here. There is no new apartments, no new houses going in with this project. This is simply an exchange of land between adjoining property owners. As Ryan noted, it's to address an encroachment, and approximately 6,000 or so square feet will be rezoned from rural development, which is how the Schaefer property is currently zoned as rural development. And then the request is to rezone those lands to low-density residential, which is currently the zoning for the Ludke property. Staff does recommend approval of the certified survey map and also approval of the rezone, and I'm happy to take any questions.
I'll move approval of certified survey map request CS 2523-23.
Second.
With 9 conditions.
Well, sorry, with the 9 conditions.
Seconded by Shelley. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries.
I'll move approval of rezone RZ 2524-23 with the 4 conditions as noted by staff.
Second.
Seconded by Shelley. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? That also carries. Next up, 5H. Resolution R-163-23, final plat request by Dan Day, agent for Hartung Brothers, to approve a final plat to allow for the creation of 15 total parcels, 9 buildable lots, 4 existing parcels, from 4 existing parcels on property associated with 2622 Blaney Road, also postponed from September. I have, looks like 3 here for 5H. Yeah, I have Brian here, Dan, and Jonathan. So,
I see he's on J2. Okay.
Yep, answer. All right.
And Dan is up front.
Good evening.
Floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. My name is Dan Day from D'Onofrio, Kaki & Associates, representing the Hartung Brothers and Serenet Investments here this evening. A few months ago, we were back here for the final plat approval. Was it August? July? Yes. August, Deanna? I can't remember. The plat you see in front of you this evening is not significantly different than what was presented at that point in time, but it is technically different just by the parkland dedication that's being done in the open spaces. So the streets and the lots have not changed. Really what we've done is done some shuffling of the stormwater to allow for more parkland dedication in the stormwater areas and shuffled our stormwater management report to do that. Like I said, our open areas haven't changed in the lines on the map, just the way the map is presented. Deanna felt that this needed to come back to Plan Commission for reapproval prior to then going to Parks and Common Council. So we are looking forward to getting this finalized. I think we're real close on a lot of the items here to push this over the finish line. So we're here tonight seeking the Plan Commission reapproval of the final plat effectively so that we can march forward towards Park Commission and Common Council.
All right. Thank you.
I don't know if Ned wants to.
Ned, did you have anything to add?
Nothing to add. We're just here to answer questions if any were raised, and obviously are highly supportive of this moving ahead.
All right, staff report.
Okay, so as was noted, Plan Commission has approved this final plat. And as staff was moving through the process in order to do the subdivision improvement agreement and finalize the parkland dedication, which is an important piece of all new development, all new residential development, it came to staff's attention that all of the parkland that the developer wished to dedicate was not shown on the plat as dedication. In order to dedicate under our code of ordinances, in order to dedicate parkland, it needs to be noted on the final plat, on the face of the final plat. So what is coming before you is a refinement of that parkland dedication. It took some time to kind of sort through all of that, but as noted, the roadway layout, the lot layout is exactly as what came before Plan Commission. The next step in this project you've already reviewed the first SIP for the Lot 8. You did that last month. That will go to Plan Commission in November along with the final plat. We'll go to council in November along with the final plat, this plat, and then the vacation of Blaney Road in November. So staff recommends approval. We ended up with a lot more conditions on this one. Don't mean to overwhelm, but the Public Works staff had a little more time to review this one. So we recommend approval with the conditions.
All right, thank you. Questions and comments?
I'm just curious. I think I read something about this. The part of the parkland dedication is wetland.
Actually, it is not.
It is not. Okay. All right. Just wanted to check. So this is pretty similar to what we looked at before. It's just a map change, basically.
It's exactly what has been done in terms of parkland dedication in the past. In the plat that you all approved a couple of months ago, there was only 2 areas of parkland dedication shown. So this clarifies.
So in your memo, you have a section about how they wanted to dedicate part of the wetlands for parkland, and then why that can't be. But so that's not relevant anymore because they're not dedicating.
I'm giving you some background of why this came forward.
Okay.
Yes.
But so none of the wetland is being dedicated.
It is not.
Okay.
That said, I want to be clear, those wetlands will still be dedicated as open space and stormwater to the public.
And then everything else, so like the easement where Harvester Pass was going to go and is not going, that was all approved already?
Yes, I mean.
Okay.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, because it's discussed in the memo, so I thought it was something
we
new.
had some more discussion on that. So.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions?
I'll move for approval of resolution R-163-23 with the 29 amendments. Conditions. Thank you.
Second.
Seconded by Gabriella. I'm just wondering, do we approve the final plat request? Does it matter, or the resolution?
It's not going to really matter at this point.
I'm reading here staff approval of final plat. When you started talking, I'm like, that doesn't match what's going on, so I got all confused. All right, with 29, seconded by Gabriella. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Then that passes. Sorry, Zach. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Next up is 5I, ADR for Quick Trip Car Wash remodel, requested by Seth Weddell, agent for Quick Trip, to obtain architectural design review to renovate and expand the existing car wash on the facility located at 6133 McKee Road.
And Seth is on.
Seth is on? Seth, would you like to give us a little more details?
Yeah, I can try and add what I can. So Quick Trip is looking to expand their car wash located there on the east side or in Fitchburg. Currently, we have it's a 3-bay. 2 of those bays are self-serve. One is a choice wash or a drive-through. We're looking to convert one of those bays into another choice wash, and then turn that 3rd bay into some additional storage for the store. And that's about it. I know there was some questions or some staff recommendations based off of the initial review. I did follow up on most of those. I did submit an as-built survey, and then I did include a rendering as well, just to show that we do intend to use similar materials for the addition. Other than that, I'm open to questions you may have for this project.
First, we'll have staff report.
Yep, I won't repeat Seth's comments. It's a remodel of the existing car wash. Staff our primary concern was related to landscaping on the property, which the applicants stated the intention is in their response to the feedback to ensure that greenery would be similar or better in implementation to what's existing. And so staff recommends approval of the architectural design review, and note our error here. It's not Kamica expansion, but the Quick Trip car wash remodel with 7 conditions.
All right, thank you. Questions and comments? I right off the bat, I have a question because I did not quite understand, Seth, what you were saying. Where I'm very familiar with that car wash. There's 2 self-service, 1 automatic, and you're saying the future state will be what? 1 self-service, 1 automatic, and storage. Is that right?
It'll be 2 automatic and storage. So we're looking to get where self-serve is not really a niche of ours. So we are looking to make a second automatic tunnel wash, and then utilize that 3rd bay as storage for our store, because you can really never have too much storage. So
you can never have too many automatic car washes around here either. Because
I was just going to say
I never had to wait in line for self-service.
We are limited on this. Yeah.
Oh my gosh! Yeah. I even told my husband that this was coming before us, and he was excited. Sorry. Any other questions or comments?
Well, while we're all in the heat of agreement, I will recommend approval of the ADR for the Quick Trip car wash remodel.
I will second.
Second by Josh. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
That motion carries.
Thanks.
Next up is 5J, minor PD modification request for Highland Reserve of regular lots, requested by Brian Munson, who I believe is here, yes, for a minor PDD modification to allow flexibility and standards for irregularly shaped lots in Highfield Reserve, specifically to allow the use of garage courts in District 2. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about what that means?
Sure. So, well, thank you. Again, Brian Munson with Vanderwall and Associates here on behalf of Viridian Homes. Oftentimes, as we move into implementation, sometimes the occasional happens where there's a text that's not quite as clear, and this is one of those instances. So what this is accommodating is for houses that are on irregular shaped lots or some of the wider lots within the project. A floor plan that's very popular includes a 3-car garage. But the design of these lots is intentional to try to make sure that we don't have all 3 cars facing the street. So there's a situation where you turn one of the garage ports in front of the facade and kind of have a courtyard. It helps the streetscape. It helps accommodate the desires of some home buyers, and it is on a home buyer selected process. But as we implemented, staff pointed out that the language that was in the GDP wasn't as clear as everyone would like. And so what we're proposing tonight is language that very clearly defines how the front yard setback is measured in relationship to those courtyard homes. Thank you for pulling this up, Deanna. This is an example of one of those lots that's irregular shaped. You can see a 2-car garage faces out to Cobbler Road.
Right
a
here.
1-stall garage is turned to the east in this case, so that, again, you don't have all the garage across the face of the house. And so this language, and we appreciate working with staff to help refine this, just very clearly states how the setbacks are measured, and allowance for these. They were anticipated in the GDP, but this language just helps clear it up.
So this is what the proposed elevation of this particular home would look like. This is actually a one-car garage that's turned, and then you can see the two-car garage. So that's where this is creating kind of this courtyard here in the center. If that kind of, maybe I can, this is the first floor plan of what that looks like. So the turned garage and then the two-car garage here.
So is some of the necessity on this the fact that the house has to be kind of squared to the road? I mean, when I see a pie-shaped lot like that, I'm just curious why it couldn't be kind of at a 45 and set further back to not necessitate this. Not that I have an issue with it. I think it's just out of curiosity.
Go ahead.
Sure. So typically we do try to orient the houses to the street, and this is kind of an oddball. This is the lot that triggered the question when the permit was pulled, and so we wanted to look at it holistically, not just this lot, but all of the zoning within the neighborhood to make sure that it was addressed. And the primary issue was just in how the front yard setback is measured, more than anything. So this is clarifying that the turned garage has to be within the front yard setback, but then the balance of the house could actually be set back a little bit further. And that's really was the clarifying element of this. Previously, the language wasn't clear enough that could occur, and that the portion of the house that was further from the setback was creating the issue that we're trying to clarify here. So it doesn't move the house closer, in terms of where that garage is. It just clarifies how that measurement is taken for the courtyard.
So the setback is measured to the garage, to the turned garage, and that changes the setback by about 16 feet. Is that correct, Deanna?
So what is happening, the original text here required a majority of the house to be within a setback range, and I can't remember off the top of my head.
Originally, it was supposed to be 75% of the home lied within the setback range, which was 20 to 25 feet. For this house, it was more like the inverse. About 25% of the house was lying within that 20 to 25 foot setback. The rest of the house is set back about 45 feet.
So visually, compared to the houses on either side, how does that impact the flow in the articulation of the homes?
So it's actually going to create a little bit more relief in the setbacks by having this. The garage would still be within that front yard range of the adjoining houses to kind of get that continuity along the street. And I would note, but typical of what you see here is, and in the zoning also required, is that garage side has to be treated with architectural materials in keeping with the balance of the house. Sometimes you'll see these courtyard garages without any details, and that just doesn't work. So that still continues, but by keeping the garage portion up towards the setback, it creates that continuity along the block. But then at the same time, making sure that we're not presenting all garage out to the front, we're able to turn that. And just by that fact, it pushes the balance of the house further back.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments?
I'll move to approve the minor PDD modification request for a Highfield Reserve irregular lots.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. Next up is 5K, Resolution R-185-23, approving the relocation order and TPP related to reconstruction of South Scion Road Phase 3 from West Clayton to north of McCoy.
Okay, this is kind of a standard process for roadway improvements when there is going to be a need to take some additional land from a neighboring property owner. And so what this resolution does is allow the city to go into negotiations for acquisition of private land for the roadway. In this case, this is for the reconstruction of Sain Road between West Clayton and North McCoy. There are some small pieces of land, all of them currently owned by Dane County, that the city would be looking to acquire to accommodate the road improvements. And it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to go into eminent domain, but this is the official notification that the city is going to go into negotiation to acquire private land and private easements. So staff recommends approval, and I will try to answer any questions.
It says in the staff report that all of the land that would be acquired is owned by Dane County. Is that true?
That is my understanding. Mm-hmm.
And it's just this little strip and then the dot kind of lower, the two red highlights?
I think, from my understanding, yes, and I think there's a piece up here too. This whole area is all Dane County except for the McEwen property and then the Gervaisi property that's up here. So most of the land in this northern part of Sain is owned by Dane County.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll move approval of Resolution R 18523.
Second.
Second by Carol. All those in favor, say
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. 5L, Resolution R-190-23, accepting right-of-way dedication along 2218 Westchester Road. We have John Mather here representing his mother, Mary Mather, which is part of the request, here just to register and support and willing to speak if needed. So staff report on this one.
All right, so these are our two more challenging ones that we've had. So let me try to walk through here. So actually the parcel, and you know what, I guess I should have just went up and got it. The parcel in question is actually in the city of Madison. So here is Verona Road, and the parcel in question is right here. And what the property owners have been working with the city of Madison, and the city of Madison has actually approved a CSM that would divide this existing parcel into 3 parcels, 1 parcel for the existing house here on Westchester, and then 2 parcels that would face out onto Harley, I think it is. So as a condition, as the property owners were going through this process with the city of Madison, it came to their attention that actually their property extends to the center line of Westchester. And so what is before you is a request for the city to accept a public dedication, a public roadway dedication of this portion of Westchester that was never actually publicly dedicated. There's a road there, there's infrastructure, it's Fitchburg Road, it's just one of those old town things that are hanging out there. The documentation in your packet, I know there's a whole bunch of stuff in there, but it just shows that the roadway was reserved but never formally dedicated to the public for roadway. So there's a deed here that we're asking approval of Plan Commission and Council to formally accept the dedication of about a 28-foot wide strip. I will try to answer any questions on that.
Did you say clean up on aisle 2? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
we have one more after this, so let's not have all the fun right away, okay?
I'll move approval of Resolution R-190-23.
I'll second.
Second by Josh. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? That carries. Next up is Resolution R-191-23, the authorizing the evacuation, execution of release of the reservation for Future Street as granted over Lot 2 of Certified Survey Map number 555 in the city of Fitchburg, Dane County. Staff report on this one.
Okay. And so this is up on Fish Hatchery, and this is Bowman Plaza. And you all might recall earlier this year, you reviewed a proposed, well, it was a pre-application conference for over 200 apartments, mixed-use development on this parcel. And in going through this early stages of planning, it was realized that originally, on the original CSM, which is here, very old and dates back to 1971, I think, or 70, I guess. It was approved by Plan Commission in 1970, but it's difficult to see, but there's actually a reservation for future street on the CSM. So it was never dedicated to the public, there's just this reservation. Actually, at the time the CSM was done, this was in the city of Madison. So Madison signed off on this. At some point, well, I guess in 1975, this parcel shifted to the town of Fitchburg, and then, of course, now it's within the city of Fitchburg. So in order to remove this reservation for a future street, which is a very unusual thing, I don't think I've ever saw that before, but it's hanging out there. In order to remove that reservation and allow redevelopment to proceed, both the City Council of Madison and then also you all and our council needs to approve that release. So the City of Madison Plan Commission recommended approval of the release last September. And then Madison Common Council approved the release on October 3rd. So we're just asking you to approve the release. Public Works is fine with it. Actually, this parcel is multifamily now, and it's in the city of Madison. So there's no future expectations to put a road there. So we're asking for approval.
So can you just go back to the Bowman Plaza map? Where is it on there?
Yep. I'm sorry, I must have closed it. Okay, so here's Bowman Plaza, and that's City on the Hill Church. The gas station here is right on the corner. This is Fish, and this is Post Road right here. So the roadway reservation actually sets right here. And the property line actually runs on the top part of that. And the proposal that came before you for the pre-application would actually build the building pretty much right up to that property line, and we couldn't allow a building to be built over a future roadway reservation.
So if Madison has already voted, do we have any option to say no? I mean, if we wanted to keep it,
well, yeah,
we couldn't because Madison is already...
If you all want to keep it, then it stays.
Okay, doesn't matter what Madison did.
Yeah, I mean, if you all want to keep it.
I will gladly entertain a motion to not keep it. Who would like to make that motion?
Second.
I'll move R191-23 for approval.
Second.
Second by Josh. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? That carries. Then we have reports from department. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ned. Oh, yeah, we forgot Ned was still on there. Okay.
You're like part of the commission now by this point. He's here
it's
every
like
month.
Ned's always here.
Carefully get recruited, but then you'd have to just abstain all the time anyway. Would you like to go first, or should I have our representatives from the other bodies give their report?
Oh.
Because we're changing up this month.
That's right. However you would like to do, Chair.
I'll give you a break. How about update from Ag and Rural Affairs? Is that Shelley?
There was a meeting today, and I think there's nothing to add. It was mostly spent on the solar farm and with the same residents here that were here tonight. And I don't think there really wasn't any further discussion than the items that also came here.
Okay, thank you. Transportation and Transit?
We actually had a very interesting meeting back on October 12th. The a big part of it was a presentation about bus rapid transit north-south route from Madison Metro. They were talking about like the big picture vision for what that will look like. The vision goes from the city of Madison all the way down to Fish Hatchery, down to McKee Road and Fish Hatchery. And so they showed us what the vision was. We talked a little bit about the funding structure. It's going to be financed by federal dollars, City of Madison, Dane County, and WSDOT, and also City of Fitchburg. So it's kind of a big partnership. But we talked about the possibility of expanding that line down the road to intersect with this campus. Because if it stops right there, obviously the people cannot get all the way down to these city services. So it was a good initial conversation. The timeline on it is we're still in the very early phases of it. The planning phase should go through at least 2025, but possibly beyond. So the earliest time we would open it would be 2027, and that is somewhat ambitious at this point. But there are going to be public meetings that are starting on a regular basis around the city. The next one, the one for City of Fitchburg, is on November 9th from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. They're currently slating it for City Hall, although we pointed out that you cannot get to City Hall on the bus. So they're going to consider some places on North Fish Hatchery Road instead. So I think the location is TBD. But there's also a virtual hearing on November 8th from 6:30 to 7:30. So that was a big part of it. And then we also talked about there's an update to the neighborhood traffic management process that's going to be referred out to council on the October 24th. So that will change the threshold for when we can take action on making design changes for speed. And there's also going to be a transit study, intracity transit feasibility study that's going to specifically look at bus route extensions, a potential shuttle that takes people to this civic campus, and or park and rides. So that RFP should go out soon, and we hopefully will see something in early 2024 related to that. And that's all.
Can I ask one question related to that? I know that the whole Sain Road corridor area is considered a TOD development. Was there any talk about having the bus rapid transit connect to the Sain Road corridor so that we can use that for our TOD?
I don't know that there's any conversation about that. My understanding is that the general outline of the route is pretty set.
Okay. So
but
I would just ask maybe at those next meetings what the plan is for the rail corridor
the rail corridor, yeah.
That's supposed to be the basis for the TODs.
No, it's a good question. I can bring it up the next time.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Report from department.
Okay, I just want to give you an update on a couple of things. First of all, the two neighborhood plans, South Stoner Prairie Neighborhood Plan and Greenfield Neighborhood Plan, we have got some initial dates set up now. So our steering committee is set. I want to just bring these meetings to you. I'll send emails out too, just so that you're aware, and the steering committee meetings will be public too, and you're welcome to attend. So the first South Stoner Prairie Neighborhood meeting, steering committee meeting will be on November 1. And then the first Greenfield Neighborhood Steering Committee meeting will be on November 8th. I'll be sending out emails too if you all have some interest. And we have tentatively set our first public meeting for December. And let me just make sure. I think we're holding for the 4th. So December 4th for a joint initial public hearing for both Greenfield and South Stoner Prairie. And that would be held here too. And then one other kind of exciting thing, I hopefully have mentioned the Uptown Capstone planning. So for the Nine Springs area around Lacey, just west of 14, of course, that has been sitting empty for quite some time. And we are working with a senior at UW-Madison in landscape architecture and planning. And she is leading a study to explore opportunities and options and future plans for that area. Our first public meeting with our student, her name's Bree, will be on November the 2nd, and that will be at 6, I think. I'll have to get that to you. I think we're doing at 6. Or 5:30, but I'll have to get that to you. But it is on November 2nd, and it would be great to have you come and participate on our next steps for the Nine Springs area. That's all I have for tonight.
All right. Any announcements from anyone? If not?
I do have one thing I wanted to talk to plan staff about. So the memo that you write is absolutely fantastic, and obviously we rely very heavily on it. But the way it's not included with the resolutions when they're referred to other committees. So all that context from the planning staff is in the memo and it's in the agenda packet, but it does not make it into the council packet, and it does not make it into any of the other commissions that see the resolutions. And I just wonder if there's a way that we can include that content, because I understand that that's a lot more work to kind of distribute that amongst, but it seems like it's a real loss of information for the other committees that are considering these things.
Let us think. I certainly do that for Ag and Rural, and what I do for Ag and Rural is just cut out the stuff that they don't need because they don't want the whole 17 pages. But I will work with the clerks and see if we can get the stuff that's pertinent to that particular committee.
Yeah, I
Good
appreciate
idea.
looking at that. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Quick question too, is there an update on the sidewalk along the Promega?
Oh, I can give an update on that too. Yeah, so that resolution passed council. My understanding is that the first part of the sidewalk was done. It was done basically as we spoke, but the rest of that project, staff is going to look at what we can do to avoid putting it in. I think there's broad agreement that we don't want a
But
sidewalk.
take out trees, right?
Yeah, we don't want to do that. So, but it's about how we make it so our ordinances are. So there's a broad agreement that that's what we should move towards, and staff has a lot of time to figure that out.
We have time, and I think even an ordinance change is on the table.
So they got occupancy kind of in the way that they needed to?
As far as
that
I
was kind of
know.
the question. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if it actually, like, the occupancy has been written at this particular moment,
Yeah.
but they have what they need to proceed.
Okay.
Good updates. And anything else? Otherwise,
I move to adjourn.
Second.
seconded by Carol. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That carries. Thank you. Didn't know if I even had a call for it.